Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. Hi, I'm David Mantia, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me today is Joe Lustberg, Managing Partner of Upwise Capital. Thank you very much for joining me today, Joe.
Yes, thanks for having me, David. Appreciate it.
Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. So, Joe, how long you been in the financing industry?
I've been in finance since 2012, so about 12 years now.
Okay. At what part of that journey did you decide to get into cannabis financing?
I used to work for a very large unsecured financing lender. I was their top sales rep there. And back in 2014, we ended up getting a deal in, which was the Green Solution. And it was the largest unsecured deal that we ever did at that time. So, I really just saw the lack of access to capital that cannabis operators deal with every day. And then on top of that, operator took that capital, used it very wisely, and kept taking more. So, from there, I kind of dove into the cannabis industry, saw what was available to cannabis operators from a lending perspective, and then really targeted that industry as our niche industry.
What is an unsecured deal?
Yeah, of course. So there's a difference between secured financing and unsecured financing. Secured financing is secured by the real estate, the equipment, some sort of collateral. Unsecured financing is secured by just the cash flow of the business and just based on, how the business is doing in revenue.
Okay. So was it the financial opportunity that brought you to cannabis, or was it that you saw, that operators really had a lack of access to capital?
For me, it was more than that. It was really passion, to be honest with you. I always say that we're very passionate about the plant. We understand the plant. We understand the flower. We're much more than just capital guys. We advise our clients and really make sure they're running profitable businesses and doing the best they can to be most efficient. So I think for me, it was more passion driven. I love cannabis and love the cannabis industry. And there was a lot of they didn't have the same access to banking and same access to capital providers. So yeah, definitely a big part of that was in my decision as well.
So what year did you start Upwise Capital?
We started Upwise we rebranded as Upwise in 2020. We were operating from 2017 as under a different name and just my regular name. And then we rebranded as Upwise in 2020. We actually started our company in January of 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. So, we're a very nimble company. We actually noticed that during the pandemic, when all lending stopped, the only types of deals that we're funding were Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, which was free government money. And then you had liquor stores and dispensaries, which were recession proof. And because we were still financing cannabis companies throughout the pandemic, we realized that this industry was a good target focus for us. And what we did is we went out and we targeted every single lender in cannabis. If there was a deal that got done in cannabis, we knew about it. We created relationships with all those lenders. Now we have about 100 different lending sources that will fund cannabis on our platform, including 38 banks. So we like to say that we're the #1 marketplace for cannabis operators to find financing. And we do a lot of construction and equipment financing. Those are probably our two biggest buckets.
So how does the marketplace work? Does it serve as a buffer for financial institutions that are otherwise don't want to get involved with cannabis? And so they're kind of involved with you and not cannabis directly? Is that
No. Okay. No, we're just the middleman between the lenders that will fund cannabis deals and our borrowers and clients, right? So I always say that we'll find you the cheapest cost of capital that you qualify for. And, as you know, in cannabis, it's very difficult for operators to find, good equipment leasing companies or, a construction lender that'll lend on cannabis value rather than real estate value. So there's a lot of advantages of working with somebody who's been in cannabis since 2014 and has been funding cannabis businesses since then. So we really understand the market, we understand the players, and we understand, how to get a deal done in this space.
So why is it still so difficult for cannabis operators to find that funding?
Federal legalization is not here yet, right? Safe banking isn't passed. Even when safe banking passes, you're still going to have certain lenders that won't step into it and consider it too high risk of an industry. I really think, until federal legalization comes, the cost of capital will remain at what it is today. Descheduling definitely helps from a 280E perspective, but it's a high risk industry, right? And every industry that we finance, we don't just finance cannabis, we finance all types of industries. There's a lot of other high risk industries that see the similar types of cost of capital.
So because of that risk, do cannabis operators pay a premium?
Oh yes, definitely. And without a doubt. We try and get cannabis operators the best deals that we can. Sometimes we can get them approved with banks if they're profitable, they're in business for 2 years and they don't have too much debt, and you have a strong guarantor or a strong borrower. But it's unfortunate there is a cannabis tax, right? Typically rates in cannabis are mid-teens to high teens. If you're a profitable business and you're established and you can meet the minimum debt service coverage that a lot of these lenders have, then you can get a cheaper cost of capital and, somewhere around, anywhere from 10 to 12%, somewhere in that range. But interest rates currently are drastically high, right? You look at prime as of today is 8.5%. So if you go out and get an SBA loan today, an SBA loan is prime plus 2.5, 2.75%. So even an SBA loan today is coming in at 10.5, 11%.
You mentioned rescheduling. What kind of impact do you think rescheduling will have on cannabis financing initially out of the gate and maybe long term?
That's a tough one. Rescheduling, there's still a lot to be done before it goes into effect, but really what it does for cannabis operators is allow them to take advantage of traditional business tax write-offs. So a lot of the businesses that weren't quite profitable and weren't making, the minimum debt service coverage for that lender to give them an offer, now after they take advantage of those tax write-offs, and they're taxed on a less percent dollar amount instead of being taxed on gross sales, they're being taxed on net sales. Maybe they'll show more of a profit and then they'll be qualified for a better product. I also think that it'll infuse some capital into the market. The day that we saw the news of descheduling break, you saw all the cannabis, stocks start to go up real quick. So I do think descheduling will have a great effect on cannabis. It's groundbreaking for the industry. But it's still a high risk industry, right? It's still not federally legal. So you'll still have some difficulty finding capital.
On the subject of that cannabis tax, are we at a breaking point in terms of sustainable costs that cannabis operators can endure?
That's a very tough question. Cost of capital is very high, right? Cost of capital in cannabis is very high, and taxes are very high as well, right? So if you're getting hit on both ends of the spectrum, it's very difficult to find cannabis businesses that are net income profitable, right? You see EBITDA positive companies, but net income is tough to come by. So it really just depends. I always say that cannabis is a state game, right? So if you're in a compressed market where, the price per pound wholesale is down drastically and there's a lot of competition, and there's very high tax, and you're getting hit with very high debt on top of that, very difficult to sustain that you know, type of hit, right? But in other states, emerging markets, especially here on the Northeast, there's definitely still good programs out there for cannabis businesses to grow their business and use their money wisely. The only other option they have besides debt capital is really to go out and give up a portion of their business, right? So debt capital is still a great solution.
Like debt capital, you're so close to the financing side of the business. And a lot of these traditional cannabis operators, let's just say, aren't the most business savvy. So when it comes to financing, where are some of the gaps that you see that, cannabis operators could really make up some of that ground if they just got a little bit smarter when it came to the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I always say that in order to get approved for term sheet in cannabis, you need to have a great business plan. You need to have an amazing team with cannabis experience. You need the ability to execute that business plan. You need to put your own equity and skin in the game. And then you need a guarantor who's able to sustain that loan, right? And put his name and sign his name on that dotted line. If it's a multi-million-dollar loan, that person has to be worth multi-million-dollars, right? So you have to have all the pieces of the puzzle together. And, there's a lot of people in cannabis who help you along the way. We do a lot of business in New Jersey, New York, because we're in New York, and a lot of these operators are startups, right? And they don't have their cannabis experience person. So, we connect them with consultants who handle the operations, connect them with a CFO who's experienced in cannabis who can, help put up together a pro forma and put together projections, because you do need a lot of documents and a complete data room in order to present your loan request to a lender. So definitely takes, a team to put that together.
Are the financing options different based on the business's place in the industry? So are options different for cultivators versus manufacturers versus maybe dispensaries?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So just give you an example, like a dispensary is opening in New Jersey. He tries to call us, he find Upwise Capital online and calls in and says, "Hey, I'm looking for equipment financing." It's like, well, what do you do? "Oh, I own a retail dispensary." Nothing in that store is considered equipment, right? It's all FF&E, furniture and fixtures, right? So for a cultivation or a manufacturer or a lab, majority of things that they're installing into that facility is equipment, right? So you can do equipment financing. And then if they own the facility, we can come in first lien position and do construction financing along with equipment financing so that they could do the entire build out. So not only is it like where you are in the actual tier of, the product cycle and the sales cycle of cannabis, but it's also state specific as well, right? Like you see the largest MSOs in the country running away from, the West Coast and getting out of California and Oregon and places like that. We still do deals in California, but if it's a California deal in the middle of the desert, it's a much tougher deal to get done than, something in a very populated area.
On the subject of different states, are you hot on any particular state over another? What is the most lucrative region right now, in your opinion?
For us, it's really, we fund in every single state, right? So as long as it's a legal cannabis license, we've done deals in Canada, we've done deals in Puerto Rico, we've done deals in Colombia. It just really depends, on what the market looks like, right? So, lenders and underwriters, they go based on price per pound wholesale and, what facilities are selling for in those areas. So we're very big in emerging markets. So New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, still, Illinois is a very big market for us, Ohio, Missouri. Um, you know, Really, I think we're one of the only companies in the space that does startup financing. So if you're a startup and you're trying to build out a cultivation, we'll lend based on a loan to cost basis and come in first lien position on the property. Typically, we're like 65% loan to cost, and then we could supplement with equipment financing to finish the build out. So emerging markets where it's a new state is really our targets.
Okay. When you're looking at funding a startup, are there any red flags that you kind of look out for in terms of what maybe not be the safest bet?
I mean, in order to fund a startup, we need some sort of collateral, right? It has to be real estate and first lien position on the facility or equipment. Um, as far as red flags go, like I said, you just need to have the ability to service the debt, the team put together, a good business plan, and somebody on the team with cannabis experience. It's always needed.
One thing I noticed on your website is that you make the application process very simple. Um, what was the thought process behind that, and how has it worked ever since you kind of introduced it?
Yeah, so we call, like I said at the beginning, I started at a large unsecured financing lender. The company is called BizFi. They were a fintech company. They're the reason that they were able to do so much volume was because of they made the application process so easy and seamless for their customers. And we've kind of done the same thing. We have a lot of different products that we offer for cannabis companies, whether it's a line of credit, a term loan, equipment loan, construction loan, real estate. It's all of our lenders except that same one-page application. And we've streamlined that process. And then we use AI and technology in the back end of our CRM to identify which lenders it would be a good fit for, to make sure that we're sending the right deals to the right groups. And it's really worked out well for us. We're a small company and we're able to originate a lot of business being a small company using technology as our advantage.
Okay. How do you use AI in the back end?
So that's more my brother's forte, to be honest with you. I'm the sales side of the company, but we put underwriting criteria for all the lenders, what their minimum debt service is, how many years of time in business they need to be, what type of loan to value ratio they lend on based on real estate. And then our sales reps pre-underwrite the deal, put all that information in, and it kind of spits out an automated response on what type of lenders and what lenders it's qualified for. So the back end engine of our marketplace really does, a lot of the pre-underwriting for, to help my sales guys place a deal with the right lender and make sure that they're getting the best deal for the borrower.
You mentioned your brother. So is Upwise Capital a family business?
Family owned, me and my brother. Yep.
How's that working out? You guys still talk during family gatherings?
Oh yeah, it's my sales team would definitely tell you it's a family business. We scream across the office at each other halfway through the day sometimes, but we make it work. My brother is my partner in everything, so we definitely make the family business work and love working together with them.
Okay. What is sort of your management philosophy when it comes to running your team?
We're I always say that we're a fintech company, so we try and make our company very cool and very young. We have a basketball hoop in the middle of our sales floor. Our guys all have standing desks. We're very cool young company. Today we just ordered a chicken parm for the whole team. So, we try and be, uh, friends with a lot of our employees because they've been with us for so long. And we spend more time with our employees than we do our own families. So our company culture is a family, always has been, always will be.
Well, I have to imagine that really helps with turnover as well.
Yeah, that's why a lot of our guys have been with us for a while. We bring them in and make them part of our team real quick.
Well, the nature of our podcast and publication, we talk a lot about cannabis equipment. And a lot of times we're talking to these manufacturers, and one of the biggest issues is access to capital to finance the equipment. How would you describe the state of equipment financing for cannabis operators?
This equipment financing is good currently, to be honest with you. I mean, we've gotten equipment financing and deals done at 100% loan to value. Our typical rates are anywhere from 9 to like 13% on a capital lease with the $1 buyout. And that requires them being in business 2 years and requires them to meet a minimum debt service of a 1.25. If they don't meet that, we can use a cross corporate guarantor, which is what we do in a lot of emerging markets like New Jersey, New York, where they have another business like a construction company, accounting company, real estate company, whatever company that is going to go on to the lease as just help service the debt until that equipment is operational, turned on, and able to crop out the first, batch of flower. And then other groups in cannabis are expensive, right? They're anywhere from like 14 to 22% over a 3-year term on equipment lease. So if you're a good, profitable borrower, you can get good equipment financing deals in cannabis, and we've gotten them done for many operators. If you're not quite there yet and you're not a profitable business, you're gonna pay a higher premium for that.
Because you finance startups and you're kind of a smaller family run business yourself, do you find yourself getting too like emotionally invested in some of these smaller companies that you've been with since the beginning?
I mean, I'm definitely emotionally invested with my borrowers. Definitely, they become friends and we become close with them and we go to their facilities all the time and we see them at all the events and shows. We try and stay with our borrowers for the lifetime of their business. Our goal is to start you off with a construction loan at mid-teen rates or an equipment financing deal at mid-teen rates or high teens, and then graduate you into a bank loan once you're profitable 2 years down the line, and then eventually a line of credit, and then some more equipment financing. So really, we try and put the customer into the best product that they do qualify for at that time in their business. And that's our goal. So being involved with our customers and becoming friends and becoming close with them is just, a plus to the job.
Being passionate about the plants, do you have a cannabis customer that, or a couple in your opinion that are just killing it right now?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Oh,
A lot
uh,
of them. So like, for example, Bostic, Massachusetts, they're based out of Lynn, Massachusetts. They're a tier 11 license. Great guys, amazing team. Met them when they started their business in 2020. We did some equipment financing for them. They just got awarded top THC flower at NECAN. And we connected them with some of our good friends, these guys, Catalyst BC. Catalyst manages about 7 million square feet of canopy space currently, including helping Bostica team. So Catalyst brought them some really crazy genetics. It's actually my favorite weed in the world. It's called Elon's Musk. And it is some of the best weed I've seen grown in a very, very long time. And just to see the type of flower and type of output that they're putting out of their facility now just is amazing. I watch their Instagrams every day and comment, keep going, guys, keep rocking out. It's really nice when you see a business start from a shell of a building to a fully built out cultivation facility. They're going to have a tissue culture lab, right? So there was a long road to get there, but now they're producing some of the best flower in Massachusetts.
Well, that has to be a point of pride for yourself as well when you're holding that flower. And there's got to be a part of you that says, I made this happen.
I was a part of it. I definitely didn't make it happen. They made it happen, right? And the team made it happen. And the genetics make that happen as well, right? The genetics are always a big part of it, but you know, it's definitely a point of pride when we see their facilities. And, my favorite part of my job is after we do an equipment financing deal and whether it's lights or HVAC or racking or, whatever the case may be, fertigation, we go into the facility and tour the facility and it's up on the wall or the lights are hanging and the pip racks are there. And we're like, wow, we provided all these racks in this room, and that was part of us, but there's many pieces to the puzzle, and we're just a small part of it.
I noticed that you also encourage strategic collaborations. What are those specifically referencing when you're talking about strategic collaborations on your site?
Yeah, so we always say that we have a lot of competitors in this space, but we call it co-opetition, right? So not only do we compete with everybody, but we cooperate with everybody as well. We have thousands of referral partners that send us business, whether it's Fluence Lighting, Pip, Grow Glide, just to name a few. But we're partnered with a lot of manufacturers in the space to provide equipment financing for their customers. They send us business, we send them business back and forth. On top of that, there's always so many more people that they need, right? So if they need a CFO or they need a lawyer or they need an accountant or they need somebody to get back energy rebates for them from the city, or they need insurance, we have a Rolodex filled with people that we've met at all these cannabis shows over the years. So we connect them with people who are good in cannabis, not the sharks who are looking to take advantage of you, but the people who actually take care of you and care about your business. And for us, you can look at our website. We have real reviews from real cannabis companies. We're transparent about everything. I tell customers day one what their price is probably going to be. So we try and do good by cannabis operators and do our part in helping companies get built out. The more companies we see actually get operational and turn this into something special, the better it is for the industry as a whole.
Being situated on the Northeast, how would you describe the state of cannabis in New York?
Cannabis in New York has been an absolute shit show. I don't know if I want to say that, but it's been a mess. And, my brother is a card winner, so, he has a dispensary license here in New York. I'm his true party of interest, so I'm investing in New York. I'm very, very bullish on this market. We've done 5 deals so far in New York, 2 construction loans and 3 equipment financing deals. So the market is still not built out. It's still not there. There's a lot of growing to do. The rollout from the OCM and Office of Cannabis Management has been a mess. I also think they're very understaffed, but here in New York, I think it still has the potential to be one of the largest cannabis markets in the world. And I'm hopeful that we can get more deals done. It took me a year and a half to convince the lenders to lend into New York. and I'm a New Yorker, so I kept pushing and pushing and pushing like New Yorkers do. And then eventually we convinced them that, this is a good market to start putting some money into. So I'm hopeful, I'm bullish, I'm proud to be a New Yorker, and I hope that one day the legal cannabis market in New York is, as profitable as or big as a state like California.
We keep hearing news out of the state that they're cracking down on illicit dispensaries and illicit operations. Is that making a dent at all? Like, is that moving the needle at all for you?
Yeah, so my office is here on 59th Street. I look outside the window right there. You can see 6 illegal stores from my balcony. Um, they originally came out with a program where they were going to fine the landlords $25,000 a day, for having somebody in there. I heard that they sent out $25 million in fines and only collected $25,000. So they recently came up with a um, new course of action where they're just locking the doors. So they'll put a padlock on the door. They won't allow the landlord or the company to go back in there. And they have been doing it over the past couple of days. Here in New York, you're seeing it all over on social media that companies are starting to get locked down. So I think it's, a warning to a bunch of the illegal operators that there's going to start coming after you. They have been coming after them, but, they would shut them down and then the guy would open up, the next day. So for me, I think that's the biggest problem in New York is the illegal retail operations and all the bodegas and smoke shops. And the biggest problem in California is all the illegal distributors and cultivators. And all the illegal distributors and cultivators from California are sending all their illegal weed here to the East Coast and they're selling it at all these smoke shops. So unless the state and the OCM can get a control over, you don't see this in like Long Island, right? You only see this in the boroughs, right? So Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, so on, so on. So I think they have to get control over it. They're doing everything they can to do it. I always said that it can't be the OCM's job. It has to be like the police's job.
Mm-hmm.
And now supposedly with this new enforcement, the police are involved in it and they're able to shut them down and lock it.
Okay. I saw that you recently made news with Growcycle as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the details of that partnership?
Oh yeah, of course. So Growcycle is, they're like a marketplace for equipment, right? And they have every single piece of equipment available to cannabis cultivators, manufacturers, processors. And they're a fintech company as well, expediting the process. So we partnered with them to be their financing arm. So if you click on your equipment through Growcycle, there's, finance here with Upwise. Click, it goes directly to our CRM. We collect documents from there, and then we get you approved for the equipment that you are going to purchase through the Growcycle team.
Is there any part of the finance industry in cannabis that you're not a part of yet that you'd like to get into?
I don't have my own fund. We're very big originators for a lot of lenders in the space. We syndicate and occasionally I'll put some money into deals where I know the borrower and I know the lender well. But we're really just a broker and the middleman. And, one day, we'd like to get on the lending side, where we're actually the lender and holding the balance sheet. But for me right now, I never thought I'd ever want to be a cannabis operator because I've lent to so many cannabis companies and I've saw them struggle. And we had the opportunity to get this license in New York, and now we're opening our dispensary. Now I'm on the other side, right? And I see how difficult it is for cannabis operators. not only just to, get financing, but get a lease, have an architect come out to your property. Like it's every step of the way, there's a cannabis tax, right? And that's the unfortunate part of the industry. At some time it does need to normalize where, people don't see this as the green rush that it is, because everybody sees cannabis and they're like, oh my God, there's so much money to be made. Let's get into this green rush. But what they don't understand is that it is very difficult to run a cannabis business because the amount of compliance, taxes, and regulations that are involved. And then on top of that, you're getting cannabis taxed along the way the entire time. So to make that money that you thought you were going to make is very, very difficult. And a lot of investors who invested into California and Michigan and all these other states that became very compressed, they took a bath and they lost a lot of money. So, before you step into cannabis, just understand it's not as easy as you think, and it's not that big green rush that everybody thinks it's going to be.
Now that you've had sort of a taste of the operational side, do you see yourself getting more involved on that side of the business?
I don't know. We're not open yet, so we're not there yet. We're building our dispensary currently, so we're still not an operator. So until I have a couple of years under my belt, see if I can make this a very profitable business. Like I said, I'm very bullish on the New York market, so I would only do it in New York. That's my home. It's what I know. It's the market I'm from. So we'll see how it goes.
I mean, that Rolodex has to be helping you guys, right? As you're opening the dispensary?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have an advantage over a lot of cannabis operators because of who I am and who my brother is and the amount of people we've met in cannabis over the years. But we're not raising debt. We're raising equity to build out our facility, and just family and friends. Equity is very tough.
Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time today, Joe. Before we get out of here, is there anything else that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience either knows about yourself or your work with Upwise Capital?
Yeah, definitely keep us in mind and Upwise in mind when it comes to equipment financing and construction financing. I would say we are able to offer the cheapest cost of capital in equipment. We have groups that lend up to 100% loan to value, and we're very experienced in cannabis and can finance pretty much any equipment in cannabis.
One thing that you had mentioned previously that I wanted to hit on again was that you help some of your clients become more efficient and profitable. Is there anything in particular like that you could mention that you see kind of across the board that people could kind of do right now to become more efficient or profitable?
Not just, no, it's always on a case by case basis. I look at a profit, a P&L and balance sheet statement much differently than most people do, right? So, for example, if somebody comes to me looking for equipment financing and I look at their, P&L and I see that there's a bunch of inventory on their balance sheet, then I would recommend them getting inventory financing if they're a manufacturer, right? Or putting an AR line of credit in place as well. And then, there's many times where we look at, what a lot of businesses are spending on advertising, marketing, and just total cost of employees. And when I see that it's drastic, I make recommendations on, them making layoffs and cutting costs and just really trimming down to become a lean, mean machine again. And then on the other side of it, we recommend consultants, whether it's an interim CFO who's going to help them with the financials, or somebody who's going to come into their cultivation like Catalyst and really increase their square footage on canopy space, because they're going to be able to get 2 pounds per plant rather than the current 1 pound that they're growing. So there's a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of different cannabis businesses that we deal with, but I always say that we're not your normal box type of cannabis capital guys, right? We listen to the story, we explain the story, and we really pivot to figure out the best solution for our customers. And sometimes it's not even providing them financing, it's providing them with a solution that is going to help them to make their cultivation more efficient before we get them the financing.
Well, thank you again, Joe. I really do appreciate your time.
Yes, of course. Pleasure.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at David@Cannabis Equipment News with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. For Joe Lustberg, managing partner of Upwise Capital, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. We'll see you next week.